Awkward.
How did the barbecues go now?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be honest, he's actually a well-known Australian artist, and I don't think there's many friends of hers that are actors that probably haven't got away with doing a love scene with him somewhere in Australian television. Because so I guess barbecues would be spicy. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Can I come?
Literally.
Wow, Rose! Wow, Rose!
Okay, we haven't even started yet, and this is already a whole situation.
I love it.
Oh, belly is aching already from the laughing. Okay. Let's center ourselves, ladies. Center. Deep breath.
1, 2.
Deep breaths in. And let it out. Okay. Before we dive into the formalities and getting on with this episode, Callie, at the beginning of each of our episodes, we love to ask a hashtag awkward question time, just as like an icebreaker. And I thought of a really good one for us today. With your background in the arts, in the performative arts, in the TV, in the theatre, in the onstage world, what is your most embarrassing / awkward on stage, on screen, just in front of a lot of people moment that you've had in your life?
The first one that comes to mind, because there's a few. The first one that comes to mind is that in our final show in my musical theatre degree at WAPA, the Western Australian Academy of Performing Arts, I was played one of the lead in Witches of Eastwick, which is the musical, and I was one of the witches, and I did not know this, but I had a quick change, and it was a quick change where I was pretty much down to the G-banger and out of a long frock and into a leotard, and then it was literally like 30-second change. It was the quickest change in the show. But what I didn't know was that until the end, the very final night, was that all the guys on the backstage hands would all gather above on the roof, kind of all climb up and look down on me while I was doing the quick change. And I had no idea. And then I know it sounds really like, oh my God, that must have been awful to find out. But actually on the last night, they all started giggling up the top. And then I found out at the after party that they'd been doing that every night. And it was their quick, it was to see how quick each of them could get up for the 30-second quick change and see if they could see the quick change and then get off the stage. So it was this whole backstage thing that I had no idea was going on. And I actually thought it was hilarious, thank God, because I was like, imagine if that was someone who actually was like, because I was just, I didn't really care who saw me. I was on the wings of the stage, but yeah. I mean, really, they're not much to look at anyway, especially after breastfeeding 2 children. But not that I had breastfed then, but look, no, they were cute and perky. Callie, don't be so mean to yourself.
Yes, exactly.
And so, I think that's probably the most awkward thing that has happened. Other than that, on set, when I was filming, I filmed a series called Last Man Standing, which I think only lasted 1 series. And I had to give one of my friend's husbands a head job, in quotation marks, like literally in real life. It was my friend's husband and we were playing lovers I was naked. I was naked again, just the G-string. And that was like maybe like the 3rd time I'd met him. And it was a closed set, which means you only have the director and the cameraman and I think one other person in the closed set. But it was pashing my friend's husband all afternoon and pretending to give him a head job. Awkward.
How did the barbecues go now?
Yeah, exactly. To be honest, he's actually a well-known Australian artist, and I don't think there's many friends of hers that are actors that probably haven't got away with doing a love scene with him somewhere in Australian television. Because so I guess barbecues would be spicy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Can I come?
Literally.
I've always wondered about that with like, I mean, you see, obviously movies and things like that. And a lot of, actresses and actors are like married or, get together in real life, but then you see them doing scenes with other people that are like their friends and that like people that hang out. I'm like, how awkward would that be if you had like a love scene with one of them, or like a movie where like you guys were this, really like got it on couple and did all things. Like, how awkward would that be, just hanging out, being friends?
Totally. But you know what? The most awkward thing I think when I think about it, that most awkward thing that happened to me was in London. And it's so funny. I think you become desensitized when you're like pashing your friends' partners and all of that in the artist world, because I went to a podiatrist because I had this sore toe in London from these shoes that I'd been wearing. And I walked in and it was my friend's husband who was the podiatrist at this clinic. I was like, I can't have you like look at my feet. I was just like, I gotta go. Like, that was worse for me. Having my friend's husband like shave the corners of my feet and like, and like look at my feet. I was like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Could I just come in and we like, tongue each other out? That would be easier for me. But it was two orgs. Is that weird?
Wow, not at all. Not at all. Especially for Paula the Ivy, because she has a foot fetish. Not a fetish, a foot phobia.
So does my mum. Like a foot phobia. Seriously.
Yeah.
Not even baby feet.
It.
She can't even do baby feet. What is with that?
See, I can do baby feet. It was something that I thought about a lot though, pre-kids. I'm like, am I even going to like not like my kids' feet? But I did a lot of hypnotherapy, hypnobirthing with my with the doula that we had, especially with my first, when I was pregnant with Harper. And I honestly think I had like issues around like claustrophobic and couldn't fly. Like whenever I'd get on a plane, I'd hyperventilate, not because I was flying, but because it was like claustrophobic, all this sort of stuff. And since I really think that had helped me like kind of shed and work through a lot of the things that, I had anxiety about, not just the birth. So I think that like since then I seem to have relaxed a lot with things that kind of get me all up into a tizzy about stuff. So
that's cool. I'll tickle you with my toes next time I see you then.
Maybe not, but like
a little bit too close, Callie. A little bit too close to home. Let's not do that.
They could be hanging out nearby, but like I still get a bit like, don't put your feet on me. But before it was just like freak out city. If somebody even had a toe near me, I'd be like,
yes,
get it away.
That's my mum. She can't
gross
do it.
Stop it. Shona, do you have same question, do you have a moment on stage? I know that we have not made it to the big screen, but we did have childhoods on stage in front of people. Is there anything mortifying that happened to you?
Not that I remember. I remember the sensation of it, because obviously there must have been numerous embarrassing moments, dancing in the concerts. And as a senior, like when you were little, you didn't really, it was like whatever, and just have a laugh about it. But as a senior dancer, it was just I don't remember specifics, but I remember that feeling like you're on fire. Like your whole face, your body is so red. It's so like just, oh my God, kill me now. But I don't. It probably would have been a wardrobe malfunction, or probably you're forgetting the steps and being like 2 paces behind someone else. But it's not funny. Like I don't have anything funny. What about you?
I kicked somebody in the head in a dance once. That was not part of the choreography.
Actually, that just reminded me. I did the same.
An accident. I was like, and we stopped and everybody kept dancing. I was like, are you okay? She's like, keep dancing. I'm like, okay.
Oh, that's funny, because I kicked some it was a floor movement, and I kicked this girl in the jaw, and I stopped dancing. It was in rehearsal and I stopped dancing, there was lots of people around. It was dress rehearsal, and I'd stopped dancing, and because I was just feeling really bad that I kicked. It was Pauline. We've spoken about Pauline before, and I kicked her in the jaw, and the dance teacher went crook at me like, just keep going, you're not allowed to stop. And it was just like, but I was feeling so bad. This girl,
I hurt somebody. Can we not stop for a second?
Exactly. Not
Nope,
in
the
show
music's
business,
still
baby.
going, girls.
Oh, dear.
Oh, funny. Oh,
I wish
performance world.
I don't know how many of your listeners are going to actually be able to see us right now, but there is a tradition at which was another one at WAPA when we were performing as in music theatre, which was, I think I've told you about this, Paula, is the 3-finger smile. So if you're not feeling it and you're not feeling, like the music theatre, like upbeat coming out for your performance, you get your 3 fingers. So imagine that you're actually putting like the first finger, middle finger, and third finger together. And then you actually just
put it in your mouth.
pop them in your mouth, right? And so that's the 3-finger smile, right? So
Okay, we will be. This will
and
be
you
on
come
the
out,
YouTube.
right? Right.
Oh, that's
So if only everyone could see what we're doing right now. If you're just
So
listening,
It's kind of like making a gun with your hand, but with 3 fingers instead of
3
one.
fingers.
and
Yeah,
put it between
right.
your teeth.
And then
between your
just
teeth.
popping them in between your teeth, and then your eyebrows rise, and it's like your whole face is alive, and out you go. That's the 3-finger
ready.
smile.
I'm
I'm ready. So that's a really professional
that's
tip there
great.
for anyone who needs to perform and they're not feeling it.
That's so good. That's
the
so
3-finger smile. I'm going to use that because instantly when I did that, even though I looked ridiculous, I was kind of like, all right, I'm ready to go. Let's go.
That's
Shine,
right.
baby.
So next time you're going for that dip in the ocean, Paula, and you're not loving it, you just
Ooh.
3-finger smile it, baby. 3-finger smile it.
This might be my new favorite, like, life hack, the 3-finger smile.
I can imagine Paula like running around with the kids and going, 3 fingers, kids, 3 fingers.
Let's do it.
Or you could even do it behind the mask, if you're just really over it and you're wearing your mask. It's like, I'm just going to 3-finger smile it into IGA,
So doing that.
That's the best. I love it.
That might be the new trigger when I put the mask on. It's like 3-finger smile, people. Like that could be like the new, like, I'm ready to go.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Callie.
Yes.
I think we can end the podcast right there.
Done. Right.
That was perfect.
Now you know why I'm a life coach, right?
That's
Oh
it.
my gosh. So Callie, welcome to the Wild Roads. This is
Thank you, wild ones.
This is our podcast about how we don't do stuff normal. Like, when I was thinking of like how long I've known you and sort of like even the path, like our friendship has been on just over the past, like, I don't know, we've been friends for quite a few years now, since about 2012, since like B school sort of days. And it's just, I find the roads that you've taken through life so fascinating, because as we've mentioned, you've got a theatre screen background, and you went and you studied acting and performance, and then after that you did some traveling. You did probably like the wildest thing I've ever heard anybody do. And then just the road from like then to where you are now and what you're doing now and the work that you're doing in the world. Give us a Callie Brown life synopsis of like what happened. How did you get from studying theatre and acting to life coaching and the way that you life coach now?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think in one sentence, I would say that I have been adamant about following the joy. And that has led me to some experiences of absence of joy. So needing to actually find the joy again. And so I started acting when both my parents were professional actors, television and film. And it wasn't like they were forcing me into it, but it was definitely something that was in my blood. And so I started dancing at 3 in the old days, where they used to have the bamboo stick and hit your little leg if you didn't, tap in the right direction or point in the right direction. And then I worked into television and film from the age of 6, and was working professionally, and took my family away on school holidays and bought dishwasher because I didn't want to wash the dishes anymore. And I was able to do all those things from a pretty young age. And then I worked in the acting industry professionally from the age of 6 to about 27. And that was here in Australia and in England, and then eventually in Vancouver in Canada. And I then met my now husband, when I was in Canada. And that was there's a long sort of 20 years in there. But when I met him, he was not in the artist field at all. He's in IT. He's really practical man, super logistical, left a small country town to go to university, went from university to work in corporate. And so he was like, wow, what a life. And oh my God, what do you mean that you've had all these different jobs, and that he just couldn't kind of make sense of my life and where it had taken me. And so we fell in love. And he kind of made me aware that I was not really enjoying what I was doing anymore. I was doing it because it was my craft and I loved the craft, but I wasn't really, like, auditions would come in and I'd get all frazzled and I'd get like nervous and agitated. And I was doing yoga at the time and actually working for a yoga studio, and I was getting more joy out of being in the yoga room. And then I decided to do a yoga teacher training, and I ended up running 5-location yoga studio in Vancouver. And I was just really loving that. And he's like, why are you doing this still on the side? Why are you still? And I was, well, that's who I am. I'm an artist, that's who I am, and who I'd identified with so strongly. And I had actually been doing some client reviews, employee reviews. And I was sitting down with some of my employees over the 6 months, and I'd noticed that 3 of them had really come into themselves. And I was like, I could feel their joy and their sense of self. And so I asked them in their review, I was like, what are you doing that's different from our last review 6 months ago? Because you seem to be really integrated and alive. And each of them said that they were going to see this life coach. And it was the first time I'd ever heard of life coaching. And it was the same woman, even though the 3 of them didn't really know each other. They were all going to see this one woman. She was from New York and was just a fabulous personality. And I started seeing her, and I saw her for 18 months. And I realized that I had lost joy. And it was just the second time in my life I'd really realized. I had a nervous breakthrough at drama school, which is my nervous breakdown at 24 years old. And it actually was like seeing the world through the eye of a needle. Everything I knew about myself, everything I knew about the world, everything I knew about my reputation, about what I thought I needed to be or should be, went into this tiny little pinhole, and everything else went dark. And I was having major panic attacks and fainting, and at 48 kilos, I was tiny. It was a massive shakeup, and it was exactly what I needed. My body was crying out for attention. And I remember a woman, this crazy woman that I went and saw, because when you're in that, someone says, go and see this person that's worked for so-and-so or whatever, and so I'm sitting in this psychologist's office, and she walks out from having a client, and she walks up to me and she goes, here, hold these 2 oranges. And I was like, oh, she goes, I'll be with you in 15 minutes. And I was like, okay. So I'm holding these 2 oranges, and she goes back into the session. And then I look up while I'm holding these 2 oranges onto the wall, and there's this bookshelf, and I see this book, and I just pull it out, and it literally falls open to panic attacks and anxiety. And at that time, I didn't know it's what I was experiencing. And it literally went through all the symptoms. And I would close the book, put the oranges down, got up and walked out of the session. And I realized that I didn't need to see her or have that time with her. What I needed was to actually see that book, see that, and realize, you know, the path that was next for me. And that kind of diagnosis in that moment, self-diagnosis, was a real turning point for me in my nervous breakthrough. And I think I share that because from that moment, I think, to then, you know, fast forward to being with my life coach and sitting with her and realizing that I slowly had forgotten what brings me joy outside of what I do, and outside of building an outcome, and outside of being validated for my performance. And when I wasn't in work, who am I outside of that? And if I don't perform Callie and I actually be Callie, will people still love me? So that was just a huge realization for me, and an understanding that after the 18 months of working with my coach, that what I wanted to do was move from telling people's stories to listening to people's stories and supporting them in building stories that actually align with who they are and with what they truly want for their lives.
Gorgeous. So powerful, so good.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm covered in goosebumps right now.
Me too.
Like,
yeah.
It's so powerful. It's so powerful. I know when because like I said, we've been friends for a little while before that, but then we both were in the same mastermind in 2018. So a few years ago now. I know at the time you were talking a lot about is Callie and performance Callie. And you could feel so many times you're like, performance Callie is coming in here. Like, is that really what I want to bring to this work? And I think that you do have such a gift to be able to listen to people's stories and draw out the joy. That's what you do. You listen to people's stories, and I've had sessions with you too, Callie, and you draw out where the bits of joy are, and you reflect that back to somebody so they can see it, and they're like, that's where it is, because it's there. It's always there. Sometimes we can't see it.
Yeah. And I think joy is at the heart of everything, isn't it? Because you know, you can only feel grief if you've connected to the joy. And grief is only love unexpressed, right? So if you're unable to have joy with that someone or in that place that you used to go to, then the grief will come because you're mourning that connection you had to the joy of that experience or that person.
Yeah, absolutely. I think both Paula and I can identify with this a little bit as well, like in different ways of like just letting go of, you know, for me, it was letting go of my tool belt, the belt that I had on with all the tools of my craft, basically, with interior design and styling. And that was really hard because it still creeps in a little bit. But yeah, and it's really about but catching that joy that my inner desires are yearning, you know, that real deep-seated yearn of wanting to know, wanting to live that existence of that just that next step ahead, but it's really like bringing it into the now. And I love that. And it was just, it's really hard to let go of. It's hard to let go of that identity. But it's, I think, time and chasing that joy and catching that joy absolutely, you know, just closes that gap really fast. You know?
It does. And I think too, like, what's beautiful about what you've said is that this skill set that we build, right, over a series of years, usually there's been financial commitment, there's been time commitment, there's been passion poured in to this skill set that becomes our identity and becomes our validation. And then knowing that actually when this skill set is integrated through my own filters, I am going to bring my own, this is true leadership, is actually when you realize that no idea that you hear is new, but once it's filtered through your lived experience and you can share it from that place, that's true leadership, right? And so knowing that, and knowing that what do I value? What is most important to me now? Right? What is the meaning for me? And that's not selfish. That's actually claiming then, because what you can do is then integrate that skill set. What's most important to me? What has meaning here? And then you share from that place. And that's going to offer people to do the same, you know, igniting them that their own skill set can show up in whatever way is unique to them. And that's valid and that's valuable.
Absolutely.
This is one of the things that I absolutely love about you, Callie. Whenever I'm around you, it's like you always remind me to like question everything and just to be curious with it. Like nothing has to be right or wrong, that there could be many possibilities in this moment, but it's just like, is that what truly like you believe, or is that something that you think, you know, it could be a conditioned thing, or it could be a should, or something that you've just picked up along the way? And does it actually feel good for you to have that thought or that belief?
Thank you for saying that and for saying that. You're so beautiful the way you see things. And I think that that is so true when it comes to the permission that we offer ourselves, isn't it? Like the permission. If we see everything as just an interesting idea, right? Oh, that's just an interesting idea, rather than really attaching to it, then it's giving us the permission to be spacious with it. Like you were talking before about feeling claustrophobic on the plane, that becomes just an interesting idea. If you're not attached to that actually forming who you are, and you're like, oh, that's actually just a really interesting idea, that, and then play with, well, wouldn't it be interesting if I was like, I don't need to be that attached to that anymore, and maybe I'm cool on planes. Let's play with that. You know, and that's, I think, where we're talking about joy too, because you start to realize you can play with things a little more rather than be really resolute in the way they are, which is how society has sold it to us, is this is how it is. This is good. This is bad. And then when you begin to do this work, especially all of you, I know, you know, here in this space and probably this community in some way have a mentor or coaching space that you can show up into. And the great piece about that is that you can get to question things and stay curious for yourself continually over and over again about the things that are showing up in the moment, you know, like, oh, isn't that interesting? And you get to really play with yourself, try things on, and change your mind, which is difficult when we've come from an institutionalized society, which tells us, you know, even though you're willing or unwilling, that doesn't matter. This is just how it is, right? So you lose, you disconnect from your own self-initiation and your own self-inspiring movements and directions and heart-led direction, because it's such, well, I can't do that. I can't do that. Right? Yes. Because someone has sold it to you that that's not the way it's done, or, you know, you need to do this, this, and this before you're an expert in this. Right.
Yeah. And even parts of like, like your tool bag, like what Shona was saying, like even parts of that, you're like, well, I can't do it this way because this is in my tool set. Like this is how I do things. This is like, you know, this is how I've trained myself to be. And sometimes it's so hard to step out of that, or even just to see things from a different perspective. But I love just entertaining it with curiosity. That's actually a big thing that I've learned from you, and something that I bring into my work a lot is like, let's get curious with it. It doesn't have to mean anything. It doesn't mean that like all of a sudden we're now on this bandwagon or we're all about this. It's just, I'm just getting curious with it.
Right. And I'm sure, Shona, that's the same even with the representation of art and interior design, is at times it's like, no, you can't do that. You can't put black with green or whatever it is, when actually it's like, well, why the hell not? Right.
Exactly. Well, my clients used to say to me, what are the rules of interior design? And my instant reaction was my go-to, because it's absolutely true. It's like, there are no rules. The rules are, there are no rules. It's just, you know, they box it up and they make you feel that there's rules, but there actually isn't, you know. It's just what you feel. And that's what art is, isn't it? It's about feeling an emotion and bringing that in. So yeah, it was just, it's very, very interesting how we are conditioned to think a certain way, or, you know, we're bad if we do, you know. So it's, very, very, very much so.
Yeah. And how we judge ourselves for our own expression too, when,
Yeah.
No, it's expressing ourselves in a playful way, or in a risky way, or in a way that that we've never done before. I think is the kind of playground that I like to exist in, and with the kind of peeps that I like to roll with, because it becomes then an opportunity where we're all just saying, well, just give it a crack, see how it feels.
Yes.
Like you said.
Yeah. Like our unprofessional dance battles we used to do on the internet. That was born out of me and Callie just knocking around, and like, you actually, it was so, like, at the time I'm like, let's just do this and muck around and have some fun, be light entertainment for people, sort of thing. But I look back at it, I'm like, that was a huge step for me, just to be like, it can just be fun. Like, we can just try stuff. And there's a lot of people that entered my world because they're like, I used to watch you dance in your stories. And like, that's how I found you. Yeah.
Me.
I found you because you were dancing. I stayed because of what you were like talking about. But like, those sorts of things, those moments that like light you up, it's undeniable. Like, you can feel somebody's energy when they're doing something that's just breeding joy out of their soul. Like, that to me is where, like, that is beauty to me. That is your body, like beauty glows from your soul. And when your soul is doing stuff that just is so much fun and just is joy, like, that's when you can see someone's true beauty.
It's so
Absolutely.
true. Yeah. And I ask that a lot in my client sessions, is we kind of play with this idea around soul strategy, and what is your soul strategy? And for me, it must be fun. That's one of my strategies. You know, it must be fun. And if there is not an element of fun, then I step away and I wait for the fun to be ignited somewhere else. And so that takes courage sometimes, because it's actually, I know that my best work and my energy is best served when there is fun involved. And that nourishes me, which in turn means I nourish the work that I'm giving my energy to. And sometimes that feels a bit naughty to say that, or a bit too simple. But there are a few things that for me must be in place for me to know that this is a place I want to spend some time in my one precious life, you know?
Yes.
Oh, I love that you said that. Do you know what? Shona and I wanted to call this podcast One Wild Life. The quote. Who's the quote? Mary Oliver. The Mary Oliver quote. What are you going to do with this one wild and precious life? And I was like, one wild life, like, this is what it is. And for so long, it's already been taken. And we're like, we can't use it. What is the name of this podcast? Because that's like the thing. And that's, you know, what are you going to do with this one wild and precious life? Like, what, you know, are we just going to sit around and wait for it just to all of a sudden be like this magical carpet ride of awesomeness? Or are you going to go, all right, what are my options? Where can I get curious? Where can I find some little sparks of joy and fun, and just like kind of play and see where it takes me? Like,
follow the fun breadcrumbs. Totally. Yes. And you know, I would say to those people who feel like they're procrastinating, or that they're lazy, or that they're playing the waiting game, I would say to them, what about if that was fun? Like, to actually just try on waiting and see what happens, you know, like actually go to the universe. Okay, I'm going to wait and see what happens. But it's the energy in which, like you were talking about Reiki before, Shona, but it actually, it is about the energy in which you're putting on that statement. You know, it could be someone says, oh, I just can't be bothered. You know, I'm just going to wait for it to happen. And seems like everyone else is getting it and I'm not, and everything I want just seems to kind of slip through my fingers.
Yeah.
And, you know, or you could say the same thing and be like, well, I'm just going to wait and see what happens, you know, because everyone else seems to be getting what they want. And sometimes it feels like things slip through my fingers, but maybe those things that slip through my fingers aren't exactly for me. And so I'm just going to sit on this couch and I'm going to read this book and I'm going to see what happens.
Yeah. I love that. That's the difference. It's the difference between feeling, like you're stuck in a cage to the freedom of waiting. Like that's it's as simple as that.
Totally is as simple as that. And it's the permission again. Here we are, permission of what you hand yourself. Do you need rest? Do it, like commit to the rest.
Yes.
It is not someone else's method. That's why I mean by soul strategies, it's not someone else's method. When you actually sit into and relax into what it is that has you feel like, when does time just pass you by, and what needs to be present? I call it like your life smoothie for it to be at its most nutritious. Like, what are the things that need to be present for you to chug that smoothie down and feel like so alive? And those things you can do yourself on a day-to-day basis. You don't need thousands of dollars to funnel out or outsource. These are the little things, the little sparks that you can ignite in yourself day in and day out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love
and they lead you to then, okay, this is feeling really good. How else? Like, if you are wanting to outsource something, but you don't know quite what it is, but everybody's doing it this way, or maybe I need to do it this way too. It's like, but you follow those crumbs first, and it shows you, okay, this is the area we're going to go play in. All right, cool. I like this part about doing it, but I need to get this stuff done. I'm going to outsource this bit. You know exactly what you need.
Yeah.
And there's no like building stuff up and then going, crap, that's not what I wanted. That feels horrible.
So true. It's like the last thing that my husband wants to do is sit and talk about feelings, right? It's the last thing. He's like, why do you find that fun to like sit and talk with people about how they feel and what they're expanding into? And like, oh God. But for him, that's just like, what is the point? Just go and throw some weights around together and throw yourself in the ocean and everything's fine, go for a surf. And that's just me. I get to look at him and see that on a day-to-day basis, because I am in the realm. I have created this incredible secret society of realm of women who love to circulate with their feelings and their emotions and talk about them and express and be with our feelings and move through the rage. And, I've got that over here. So then I get to kind of pop my mind into his mind for a moment and go, that's not for everyone. And that's cool too,
Yeah, exactly. Man, the amount of times I've exhausted Simon, my partner, I've exhausted him trying to do that. And he's just like yawn and he goes, I'm with you. Just yawning. It was like, and the pain on his face because he just can't do it.
Yeah. Bless
I
him.
gave up.
Yeah.
I know.
But that was so beautiful, because I've met your husband a few times, and one of the last time that we saw you was when we traveled around Australia, and you guys were so kind to offer us to set up camp in your yard.
How amazing.
In your garden.
So fun. Talking about fun.
Talking about fun. It was, oh my gosh, the whole time it was just a barrel of us. We were having so much fun. And I just remember that it was when we traveled, like being able to stay and meet up with people along the way it was so beautiful, because my husband and I were talking about, like, every time we stayed with somebody, he's like, people welcome us into their home and make us a part of their family while we're there. Like, it wasn't just like, pull up a spot and whack out your camper on our lawn and like, go do whatever. It was like, come into our home, let us feed you, let us take you around, let our kids play, what's mine is yours, you're welcome, all of these things. And it was just, it's so beautiful to have that, not only just having that support, like, of the physical space of, like, being able to, use your bathroom, which was amazing, and have proper showers and like all of those things, and, being fed a home cooked meal, because in a camper you don't have a full kitchen, like those beautiful things. But it was also the connection that both Brendan and I got from that, my husband and myself, because you and I would share our feelings and have these big, deep, meaningful conversations and like let out all the rage and all the passion and all the, be a whole ball of feminine flying about fire energy. And then
Love it.
Brendan and Elton got to have the man time. They got to like disconnect from that, because obviously traveling, you know, it's Brendan and I most of the time. And like, I'm wanting to do that, but then he's also wanting to disconnect and just like, not disconnect, but like not have to hold a lot of emotions and all of that, while I didn't have somebody to be able to do that in the person with. And so, you know, we were there for each other and we did as much as we possibly could for each other, but it was just so nice to have these moments where we would stay with people and, you know, the bros got to bro out and the women got to like get wild. And
that's the best.
The kids run around wild, and it was
you
so
realize
nourishing.
the village, don't you? The importance of village when you experience that. Like, that's so missing in our secular society.
Yes.
And also with traveling, it also opened our eyes up to how much of a bubble we actually live in as well. Because I mean, we absolutely love our friends and our family that we live near here with, but it was just so refreshing to live with other people for, you know, this short while. And the way that you, like, it was so intimate to be invited into your family, to witness you as a family unit, because we're always in our own family units, and just to be able to be a part of another one, it helped us to, you know, communicate and see appreciate on different levels. Because there were so many different families we went and stayed with, and the dynamics were always so different, and where they lived and how they lived and what they ate and how they cooked and how they related to their children, the way the children were schooled and all of these sorts of things. And it just was like one of the greatest gifts we got from traveling. So thank you for being a part of that. And that was just staying with you. Oh my gosh, FYI, my kids still talk about your chicken soup, and that it was like the best thing that they've ever eaten. And they're like, why don't you cook soup like that? I'm like, I don't know. Callie's just like,
bless them.
So cool.
We'll have chicken soup again one day when the world opens up and I've got no teeth, and I'll make them some chicken soup.
Yeah, nice and mushy for me. I'll be there. I'll be there. But that's another big part of who you are, is the help, like the nourishing, the nurturing through connection, through all of that, but also through food. And I love it. Actually helped me to reconnect, or to actually connect to food on a different level, because I've never been a great cook. I've never really connected much to like enjoying cooking. I'm like, it's just something I have to do in order to eat, to survive. Like, I've never had that real connection, but witnessing you in the kitchen and cooking and eating these meals that you could just like, they were next level. I'm like, it's the love. It's so the love.
It's the love. Before kids, I had no interest in food, and I think there was that they instigated that inside of me once I saw these little people and the responsibility I had for these little people, and it just took me down this road of nutrition and understanding the nourishment through food, and understanding my own body and how I felt when I ate differently and cared for, and also this idea of creating. You know, I think when I stopped acting, there was a lot of other ways I wanted to funnel that. And you might know this, Shona, with being like super creative. Same with you, Paula, like both of you really creative. There's a way in which you want to get creative with life and be in relationship with life. And so I started to see the kitchen and food as an opportunity to do that, and to kind of bring in some creativity and bring in my own flair and my own understanding and appreciation of nutrients and where it comes from and how many steps it's taken from the earth to my belly, and just little things like that. And then taking it next level, I think, was then saying I'm a curious being. I think then being in relationship with my son and seeing his decision to not go to school. And so then homeschooling life opened up. And so I think when we're open to the conversations of life and we're actually in response to life rather than who we think we should be or holding on to some old identity of ourselves, then we're able to kind of shift and change and surprise ourselves. Like Elton still goes, the woman I met, you know, the baked potato and the baked beans, that was the woman I met. And like, who are you? And neither of us thought we'd be going down the homeschooling journey. And I'm really passionate about, you know, deschooling ourselves, deschooling our marriages, deschooling our how we think of ourselves, not just the element of education, but there's so many things we've been schooled in our lives, and really beginning to reflect on that and disassociate myself from a definition that's been created for me and create my own definition instead.
Damn straight. I love that. I definitely can relate. Like, now that I've, you know, closed that chapter, I've hung up my styling boots. I'm more in the kitchen now, and I love that. I love the cooking. But I think the biggest thing for me is that I was always go, go, go. Just busy, keep busy. And, you know, given that was, you know, locked in our homes, I don't know whether that was a part of the shift, but I love pottering now. I don't know, maybe it's the age, you know, mid-40s, I don't know. Maybe there's
time to potter.
And I'm like, who the heck is this? Because I'm just like this party girl, not party girl, but rock and roll. And just, you know, I just love to hang and, you know, music loud and whatever. But and now and like Sundays are pottering, and I'm like, whoa, what even is this? But I love it. I love it.
Isn't that
it's
great?
So good. Yeah.
A creative outlet, you know, and it's like just doing something with hands and mind.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's funny. The other day I was thinking about how the art of conversation seems to be so dwindling, right? Is this art of conversation? And then I was talking to a friend and she said, you know what I'm playing with at the moment? The art of lingering. And I was like, lingering. She said, yes, the art of lingering. You know, when you it's a bit awkward, the conversation's finished, but you just linger a little longer in the conversation. Or you can feel that someone wants you to leave, you know, you're there for dinner. And I just stay a little bit longer, you know, lean into the discomfort. And I was like, this is awesome. The art of lingering. You know, what else have we forgotten? You know, there's right. And then you talked about pottery, and I was like, just imagined you, you know, Sunday off she goes, you know, just off to do her pottery, and you know, just like doing those things that just that just challenge a concept of ourselves or concept of society, or so cool.
Yeah, I know. It's just we never stop growing, do we? Just never stop. Love that.
So true. Isn't that true? Like with aging too, I think there's such a like a I don't know, like a disdain for this idea of that we do continue growing, actually. Like we actually do, and that there's benefit in the wisdom of aging too.
Oh, that reminds me of, we had Vivi on the podcast the other week, and she was saying that, you know, she travels a lot. She's traveled to like 70 countries in, I don't know, very short amount of time before she was 24 or something. Something that was said to her when she was young was like, you know, there's wisdom in age. And it's like, yeah, there is wisdom in age, but she's like, the wisdom comes from living though. And it like, if you spend your whole life doing what you think you should, like imagine the difference in your like the growth in your wisdom, as opposed to doing things that you were following like the fun breadcrumbs with. Like we see this with children when they're having fun, their minds just like go into overload and they learn all of these things so easily. And you're like, where the hell did you learn that from? And they're like, oh, I was just playing. And then like this, and then like my kids surprise me all of the time when you give them that freedom of fun, that their experience and their quality of experience and their growth in their own wisdom is exponential. Compared to like think, oh, I have to do it like this, and the teacher said I had to do this like this, or this is the way that we're supposed to do it, and blah blah. It's very limited. So it's there is so much wisdom as we keep growing, but also the quality of, you know, that wisdom, I suppose, or not, like the opportunity you're giving yourself to develop that wisdom or explore that wisdom and allow it to become what it gets to become for you, not necessarily what your wisdom should look like when you're at a particular age.
Yeah, or shutting it down or tailoring it.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I love that.
To something that it should be. It's interesting. I wonder whether we have become a little sterile in this ability to mobilize change or move through change without or transition without thinking that fear is wrong. Because when we see change and we see transition and we try something new, then it's innate in us to bring up the fear to keep us safe, right? But it's also because fear is like an opportunity to realize, oh, there's something here for me. Like I'm going to follow, like I say, follow the fun. I say follow the fear too, because there's something that's calling your attention in this direction. And so I guess I say that because I think a lot of people maybe fear trying something new or letting go of something old or identifying themselves in a new way, sharing something that they've held inside of them for a long time. And I think if there's fear there, follow the fear, because on the other side is going to be something beautiful, I think, really beautiful. And I think you must feel that with your clients, Paula, like people must come to you with this fear of you know, seeing themselves or others seeing them. And yet there is still this call for them to give themselves the permission to get in front of the camera.
Absolutely. I think everybody who I work with has, and even I have that too. It is a big fear. And it's something that I think is you know, it can be partly a conditioned fear, but it's also like a generational fear that we have as human beings and as, you know, feminine human beings as well, like being seen and being heard. Like we used to get burned for that in certain ways and in certain circumstances, you know, and it's such it questions, I think what it is, it questions everything, because you grow up thinking certain things because, you know, we have certain ideas of what beauty is and what's acceptable and what's feminine and how things should look and where they should be placed and, you know, all of the things that it kind of questions everything. When you come to see yourself, it's like, but I don't look like that. And I've been resisting it for so long because I know I don't look like that.
Yeah.
But then it kind of questions, it's like, but why is that? And it opens up, it's so beautiful. It just opens up this whole like realm of possibilities. Like, but why is that? Well, if that isn't like ultimate truth, then, you know, like I am beautiful in my own way. And it's like this self-discovery of like finding that for yourself. And it's when you are witnessing yourself in the act of joy, delight, experience, indulging your senses, having a good time, that's when people will like, they'll show me photos of themselves. I'm like, I can't stop looking at this photo. I'm so beautiful. Like I've never seen this in myself before. I'm like, because you had let yourself go and you were having a moment with life and you captured that and now you can see it. It's got nothing to do with changing and molding different parts of you that you think that, oh, if I had a flatter stomach or tighter arms or, you know, less chubbier cheeks or whatever it is that your hang-ups are, then I'm going to see my beauty. That's when it actually, because you hear it all the time. You're like, yeah. But just only if my body was different, I would love it. Like, yeah. I get it. It sounds nice, but no. And then it's like, it actually, you realize that and you're like, oh, that's what it is. I get it now.
Yeah. It's heavenly.
That is heavenly.
Oh my gosh. Callie, you are an exquisite person. I absolutely love you.
Yes.
Thanks for having
I love
me,
this conversation.
You are so welcome.
To wrap this up, let's tell us where we can find you and what you have going on at the moment, how people can work with you, because the work you do is absolutely life-changing.
Thank you. So Callie Coach is my Instagram handle. Go check me out over there. Check out my reels. They're a bit of
and
joy,
please,
a bit
the
of fun.
reels are the best and the stories entertaining. Plus, it's like my daily television fix. I love it. Go check that out.
Thanks, Shona. Thank you. And then my website is calliebrown.com.au. That's calliebrown.com.au. And it's Callie with a C.
Yes.
And working
an
with
IE.
me, reach out. Like, just you know what, I create through conversation. So the last program I ran, a group program called The Corner, that we've just closed up, which was amazing. It was a listening circle through Voxer, and that was actually created by a client. She messaged me and was like, right, you've got nothing right now that serves me, so can you do this? And that's how I roll, and that's how I work. So if there's something that you're really yearning, I work one-on-one. I run a clarity circle twice a year, just finished that. And I'm not quite sure I'm going to run it again this year. But I kind of play with my community, which is the funnest way for my business to grow. And I've been coaching for 11 years and really only the last 5 years online. Before that, I always thought I would just be in person, one-on-one. And that was kind of what I thought, yet again, a shift of identity. You know, I thought that was what I needed to be for us to get the most out of it. But actually, I love being a voice in someone's head. And a lot of my clients I've never met face to face. And we have, you know, they've been working with me for 2 or 3 years on and off and coming in and out. And I feel so privileged to be able to just walk alongside so many amazing women doing amazing things. So just reach out, have a conversation with me if you feel it. And that's kind of my that's my one-line business plan, conversations.
Love it. Yep.
Oh, I love you.
So beautiful. You're amazing.
Thank you so much for coming on, Cal.
Yes, thank you.
I send you both so much love. I would love to, before I close, I'd love to hear what's been the biggest, funnest thing out of podcasting together.
Oh, I love this question.
Yes. I do too. The standouts for me, it's definitely like to get to know Paula better, and it's another thing as well, as like she changes some perspectives and like gets me thinking. But to be honest, it has been connecting where we can actually laugh our asses off and we can cry so many tears and heal in one episode. You know, it just, there's healing, there's connection, human connection that is just, you can't bottle it. It's just beautiful. That's for me.
That's so yummy.
Yeah.
Paula?
Yeah, I think, Shona, I are very similar. Yeah, like, well, human design wise, I'm a generator and she's a manifesting generator. So we both have that generator energy and we're both responders. So it's kind of like, I know I've wanted to start a podcast myself for so long and I've always procrastinated on it because I'm like, half the time, like, I don't even know what I talk about. But I find having a partner to be able to interact and have a conversation with, like, that to me feels so powerful. And it helps me to really, if I'm just having a conversation with myself, I know some people can do that really, really well, but I kind of struggle to really draw out a lot of what I have to say just by talking to myself. But when I've got somebody to talk with, and, you know, Shona and I are in the mastermind together at the moment. So it feels like we know where each other is at through that as well. But then it's really cool to be able to bring that onto a platform that we can share with everybody and do it in a space where we can hold each other while we do that. Because it kind of feels like when you do it, for me, if I was to do it on my own, kind of feels like I'm like standing naked and, you know, I could just fall into a puddle of mush. And it just feels like, it feels so nice to have conversations where I get to be held while I share and also hold while, you know, Shona shares as well. And having guests on just makes it all the more delicious.
Yeah. And it's fun.
And it's so fun.
Yeah.
So
and I think
fun.
what's so beautiful is what you've both it's such a wonderful way for us to close, because I think what you've both offered is your soul strategy for what you need to create. and how that actually feels for you. And so your connection for both of you is huge. And so having each other to connect with has just given you that permission and the fun to go ahead and create. So it's so awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Hashtag nailed it. Yes.
Big love to you both. I'll see you on the online wide world webs. Big love.
Yes.
Love you, Callie.
On the wild.
Bye.
Bye.